One of the countries that has changed quite a lot under the recent years is India. So Quartz India has an article called India is benefiting from the digital payments war between the world's largest tech firms. So as new economies are coming online, all the big giants, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, all of them are battling to take the biggest market share. And sometimes people benefit from that. So in India, the transition to mobile and online banking has actually accelerated quite a bit. So India's mobile payment space has turned into an intense battleground between big global tech players like Google, Amazon, Walmart, Facebook. All of them want a piece of the pie. So why is India interesting? India's interesting because in 2015, if you had 1,000 people, only 73 of them had mobile banking or internet-based banking.
Whoa.
Today, it's 1,265.
Oh, they're getting there.
So it's actually out of 1,000, meaning that people will have more than one account, which is what we saw with mobile phones in the emerging economy for a while too, right? That people all of a sudden had more, that they had 1 point something mobile phones per person.
Yeah.
Now we've learned to integrate them better, or with like dual SIM and stuff like that. So it's a massive market, and it's a market where people are still coming online. So they're projecting that the Indian mobile banking market will grow as fast as we saw in the sub-Saharan Africa and Asian mobile market. So everyone's trying to get in there first. And it's like sometimes, in tech, you see these things that happen at the same time that makes it kind of magical. Because in India, they've always loved bills. Like they love paper money. And the thing with paper money and the global pandemic, it doesn't mix well. So I remember when the pandemic came out, I had just been in Vietnam and I was in New York. And I'm at the airport. And first of all, we were struggling to get out of the United States. So I was sitting in the United States when Trump announced, like, we're closing the country on Thursday. And I'm like, shit, I think my ticket out is on Thursday, which it was. It was like at 10 p.m. So I'm like, the plane can really not be late because I don't want to get stuck in the United States. And then I was at the airport and I had all this, cash left. And then I went up to the register and the woman, she just looked at me like, you're going to pay with like bills, you're going to pay with money. It's just, you remember those first like very chaotic days when the pandemic hit. And I was like, well, I don't want to get stuck with this money. And there was a guy next to me who was like outraged. And he said, he interjects himself in the conversation and said, how many people are actually still paying with bills? And she said like less than 10%.
These
like,
ancient
at
artifacts.
Starbucks, like
Yeah.
she's like less than 10%. But that was a crazy time. I remember everyone started wearing mittens, like regular mittens, not like plastic. And when we got in the plane, people would like get the sanitizer and they were just wiping the chair and the ventilator, like everything, where I was just like, be careful, but we're still gonna sit like this close to each other, for like a while. So that's just a little optimistic. No, the Indian space is super interesting. It's a market that's difficult. I've done some work in India, and first of all, the Indian market's interesting because they'll do anything they can to cheat the system. And like, I'm not trying to say that to be discriminatory. I love people that cheat the system. There's a reason why big tech companies often do like a competition, like, can you make our algorithm better? Like, I think it was actually Netflix that did that at some point. Like, can you make our recommendation better? Can you do something? So I love people that try to cheat the system, challenge the system. But in India, for example, in EdTech, they'll do anything to try to hack the system to get a better grade. So that's like one of the things they always do. Another thing is it's a notorious B2C market. So normally when I've been involved in ventures, it's normally like B2B, but the B2C market's pretty well developed. But if you try to go in, for example, with a learning solution at a school, a lot of times the schools, they don't 100% know who the students are in terms of their ID, and they often don't actually have an email address for every student. So what they often, advocate is that we should try to make, for example, learning platforms, a B2C model where the end user pays. And that's extremely tricky, but it's also sometimes like borderline unethical. So I've had a bunch of universities pitch to me. They're like, we'd love to use, the software that I've developed in CanopyLAB at our school, but we don't want to pay for it. We want to put all the information our students need to know behind a payment wall, and then you can charge whatever price you want and give us a part of the cut. And then if they don't access it and they don't pay, they don't know what classroom to show up to at school. So it's just like the market there works really differently. So of course the big tech giants are competing for it, but it requires really unique understanding of the Indian market to be successful in India. And I know that, for example, the Danish embassy there, if Danish companies try to go to India, a lot of times they're like, you really have to do your research. I knew there was a Danish edtech that tried to go to India, and they had a mobile-based text message-based application. And we've known that text message-based applications have been wildly successful a lot of places in Africa, where they haven't had enough internet. So for example, a lot of edtechs that do math over text message have succeeded during the pandemic. The problem in India is that there's so much spamming, so many like scamming and phishing where they're trying to get your money, that the providers will shut down someone who sends over, let's say, 1,000 text messages a day.
Oh, wow.
So if you're working with a school, and a school in India can easily have like 20, 30, 50,000 students.
You're going into spam folder.
Yes. So they put them out of business constantly. Or they found out that they would put them out of business. So they're like, the model you have will not work for India. So you really, that's why it's only the giants fighting there. There's no like small provider trying to take it. Because, or unless maybe we'll hear of a local one eventually, but it is super tricky space.